Every day the walls squeezed tighter until he became part of the wallpaper. I remember when I first realized this, looking at my brother, Max. It wasn't a metaphor. I was sitting in an armchair in their new living room, which smelled of damp plaster and expensive adhesive, trying to figure out why his left shoulder looked so flat. It seemed to dissolve into the ornate, burgundy pattern chosen by his wife, Iris. Iris was the perfect hostess. Too perfect. In her house, no speck of dust dared to settle without permission, and the silence was thick, like jelly. Max sat motionless, his gaze unfocused. "He just needs peace and quiet," Iris rustled, entering the room with a tray. She moved silently, like a draft. "Renovations take so much out of you. Don't they, darling?" She ran her hand along the wall, directly where my brother's shoulder touched the surface. Her fingers, long and pale, gently smoothed the seam between the fabric of his shirt and the vinyl covering. I saw the shirt fabric change color for a fraction of a second, becoming slightly more burgundy. "Max?" I called out. My voice wavered. "Come home with me. You need to clear your head." Max slowly turned his head. His neck cracked, like dry cardboard. His eyes were foggy. "I'm fine here, Alex." His voice was quiet, muffled, as if coming from the next room. "Iris says I blend perfectly with the decor." I jumped up. Instinct screamed, "Grab him and run." I walked up to my brother and gripped his arm to pull him out of the armchair. But his arm wouldn't budge. I pulled harder. Max cried out. The sound was wet and squelching. I recoiled. On my palm was a sticky, translucent slime that smelled of starch, and his shirt sleeves, they were fused to the armchair's armrests. No, not stuck. The fabric fibers were merging with the upholstery. "You're ruining the composition," Iris said in an icy tone. She wasn't angry, no. She looked at me like an annoying smudge that needed to be scrubbed out. "Choose, Alex. You will sit down and have tea, or I will have to ask you to leave. And Max will stay. He needs to set." I looked at my brother, at his pleading but paralyzed gaze, and at Iris, clutching a heavy spackling knife in her hand. I understood. If I left now, I would never see him alive again. If I stayed, I might not get out myself. I sat back down. The next 24 hours turned into a viscous nightmare. I stayed the night in the guest room but couldn't sleep. The house was alive. The walls breathed. I could hear the wallpaper rustling, smoothing itself out, the adhesive bubbling beneath it, filling the voids. In the morning, I burst into the living room. Max had changed. He wasn't sitting in the armchair now. The armchair was gone. He was standing by the wall, his back pressed into it. More accurately, he was embedded in it. His legs, up to the knees, had lost volume, becoming just a convex relief on the flat plane. The wallpaper pattern, those cursed burgundy lilies, crept up his jeans, intertwining with the fabric. "Help," he whispered with only his lips. I rushed to him, pulling a penknife from my pocket. "Hold on, Max, I'm going to cut you out now," I muttered, my hands shaking. I plunged the blade into the wall next to his thigh, trying to separate flesh from paper. No blood came from the cut. Instead, a whitish, thick, gooey paste slowly oozed out. Max howled. It was an inhuman sound, the cry of tearing paper and breaking bones. "Don't," he screamed. "It hurts. We are one whole." Footsteps sounded behind me. Iris stood in the doorway, holding a bucket of fresh starch paste and a broad brush. She smiled that terrifying, knowing smile reserved for misguided children. "You're only making it worse, Alex. You're disrupting the bond," she said softly. "He's almost ready. Look how beautifully the light catches it." She dipped the brush into the bucket and walked toward us. I tried to push her away, but my legs felt like they were filled with lead. The floor, the parquet beneath my boots had become soft, sticky. I looked down and saw with horror that the soles of my sneakers were beginning to sink into the wood, as if into a swamp. "The house only accepts those who appreciate comfort," Iris sang, drawing the wet brush across my brother's face. His features blurred, covered by a shiny film. He fell silent, his eyes glazed over, turning into painted ones. I realized I was losing. My attempt to save him had only accelerated the process. I, too, was becoming mired in this cursed house, becoming part of the decor. By evening, all that remained of Max was his face and one hand, outstretched as if begging. His entire body had become a flat pattern. The burgundy lilies had completely consumed his clothes. I sat on the floor, trying not to touch the walls, clutching the useless knife. Iris had gone to the kitchen to prepare dinner, leaving me alone with the horror. I had to do something. I crawled to the wall, trying not to look into my brother's glazed eyes. If I couldn't tear him off, maybe I could remove the layer completely. Remove the wallpaper with him. I used the knife to catch the edge of the sheeting in the corner, where it seemed to be pulling away slightly. I pulled. The paper yielded with a sickening squelch. I yanked harder, exposing what lay beneath the layer of fresh renovation. I expected to see concrete or brick. But beneath the layer with Max was another layer. Old, yellowed wallpaper with tiny floral patterns. And within that pattern, outlines emerged. Human outlines. I looked closer and staggered back, nearly screaming. Pressed into the wall, flat as a pressed flower, was another man. His mouth was open in a silent scream, distorted by time and pressure. And beneath him, where the floral wallpaper was also torn, a piece of old newspaper was visible, and within the newspaper's text, a child's face emerged. This wasn't just an obsession with home decor. This entire house was a layered cake of people. Iris wasn't just blending them into the interior. She was building her nest out of her victims, layer by layer, year after year. "You shouldn't have seen that," Iris's voice sounded right behind my ear. I didn't have time to turn around. Something heavy and wet crashed down on my head. A sheet of wallpaper, thickly smeared with paste. It plastered my eyes, nose, and mouth shut. I choked, inhaling the sweet, chemical smell. I felt strong hands pressing me against the wall next to my brother. The glue burned my skin like acid. I knew this was the end. I would be the next layer. The trap had sprung shut. Darkness and suffocation. I felt the wall behind me become soft, accepting me into its embrace. My heart beat against the plaster, but with every thump, the sound grew fainter. I heard Iris smoothing out the air bubbles on my chest with a hard roller. Up and down. Up and down. "You'll be beautiful here, right next to your brother," she whispered. Such symmetry. I was close to resigning myself. My body was numbing, the fear receding, replaced by apathy. "Just become part of the wall," a voice whispered in my head. "It's easy." And then my hand, which she hadn't yet managed to smooth down, hit a roughness beneath the wallpaper layer. The very cut I had made earlier. I felt the dry, dead texture of the previous husband with my fingers. And a thought pierced me, clear and sharp as the knife I'd dropped. Iris is obsessed with a perfect surface. Any lump, any wrinkle drives her mad. She doesn't kill us outright, she assimilates us. Assimilation requires the material's compliance. I couldn't escape by force. But I could become bad material. I gathered all the air still left in my lungs, and instead of trying to pull away, I did the opposite. I arched my back. I curled my fingers into unnatural, broken shapes. I pushed out my elbows and knees as far as the constraining paper would allow. I became a lump. An ugly, sharp, irregular knot beneath her perfect wallpaper. The roller stumbled over my knee. "No!" Iris shrieked. "Relax. You're ruining the smoothness." She began to press harder, trying to flatten me back, but I resisted. I scratched the plaster with my fingernails, tearing off the previous layers, mixing all of us into an ugly mess. I felt Max tear beneath my fingers. "Forgive me, brother. This is disgusting," she screamed, and I heard panic in her voice. "Bubbles. Wrinkles. Everything is ruined." She threw the roller down and started ripping off the sheet of wallpaper that covered me, intending to start over. This was what I was waiting for. As soon as the paper holding me burst, I tumbled onto the floor, wet, sticky, covered in pieces of foreign skin and old newspapers. I didn't run for the door. I grabbed the bucket of paste and flung it at the wall, right into the face of what remained of Max, and into Iris's face. "Renovations are over," I croaked. While she shrieked, trying to wipe the paste from her eyes, I struck the lighter I found in my pocket. The wallpaper, soaked with chemicals, flared up instantly. The fire greedily licked the wall. A multi-voiced howl erupted. It wasn't just Iris and Max screaming, the walls were screaming. All the layers of this cursed house were screaming. I smashed the window with a chair and fell out onto the night grass, coughing and gasping for air. The house behind me turned into a torch. I saw Iris's silhouette darting in the living room window. She wasn't trying to escape. She was trying to put out the walls with her bare hands, saving her precious interior, until the fire consumed her too, making her the final, black layer of soot. I lay on the grass and watched the roof collapse. Now, I live in a room with bare concrete walls. I don't hang wallpaper. I don't put up pictures. But sometimes, when I stare at the gray concrete for too long, I think I see a familiar pattern in its grainy texture. And then I understand, you never truly leave a house like that. A part of you stays glued there forever, in the ashes.